everyone, I'm Meg Smith, and welcome to the third installment of our series on reform movements in Kansas. In this video, we will learn about the women's suffrage movement, a reform movement that advocated for women's right to vote. What is suffrage? Suffrage is the right to vote, especially in political elections. As early as the Territorial period, suffrage was a popular topic in Kansas. In June of 1859, delegates from Kansas Territory gathered at Wyandotte to resolve disagreements about the proposed state constitution. One of these disagreements was the matter of women's right to vote. Though some delegates supported granting equal voting rights to women, the majority considered this idea to be too radical, and suffrage was granted only to every white male person of 21 years and upward. While women would not be granted the right to vote, the Wyandotte Constitution did address some rights for women. Clarina Nichols, a reform advocate who was involved in the abolition and temperance movements, attended the convention and met with delegates to argue for equal political and civil rights for Kansas women. She had traveled around Kansas Territory speaking about equality, and her influence is evident in the final version of the state's constitution. In 1861, Kansas was admitted to the Union as a free state under the Wyandotte Constitution. Due to Clarina's influence, some rights for women were ultimately included, such as rights to their own property, custody of their children, and the right to vote in school elections. In 1867, Kansas suffragists adopted the sunflower, Kansas's state flower, as a symbol of their campaign. Because of the sunflower symbol, yellow became associated with the national women's suffrage movement. That same year, Kansas held a referendum on proposed amendments to the state constitution. The State Impartial Suffrage Association, led by Governor Crawford, campaigned for impartial suffrage, the right to vote without regard to sex or race. The proposed amendments would remove the words white and male from the description of who had the right to vote. Both amendments were rejected by voters. In 1887, following the rejection of impartial suffrage, a new generation of reformers in Kansas shifted their focus to procuring municipal suffrage. Municipal suffrage is the right to vote in local elections. Focusing on municipal suffrage received disapproval from suffrage leaders at the national level, who felt that fighting for anything less than full voting rights was settling. An amendment proposing municipal suffrage for women was introduced to the state legislature, and in 1887 the amendment passed. Kansas was the first state to give women the right to vote in local elections, making it the most progressive state in the country with support for women's suffrage. In addition to the ability to vote in city elections, women could also be elected to city offices. As a result of the new law, women's involvement in the political sphere skyrocketed. The elections in April of 1887 saw women running for and being elected to political office. In Syracuse, Kansas, all 5 city council seats were won by female candidates. These elections would also see the election of the nation's first woman mayor, Susanna Salter. Susanna Salter lived in Argonia, Kansas, and was an officer in the local Women's Christian Temperance Union. Without her knowledge, she was nominated for mayor as a joke by a group of men in town who were supportive of alcohol. They thought that putting a woman's name on the ticket with the other anti-alcohol male candidates would ruin any support for prohibition. They nominated Susanna because she was the only member of the WCTU who lived within town limits and was therefore eligible to run. Upon discovering her nomination, Susanna said she would accept the office if she won the election, so supporters spent Election Day campaigning on her behalf. She won by a 2-to-1 margin, becoming the nation's first woman mayor. Susanna did her job well and served her term without controversy, but never sought another political office. Her family moved to Oklahoma, where, in 1961, the nation's first woman mayor died at the age of 101. Suffragists felt that after their victory in '87, their cause had gained momentum, leading to their second campaign for full suffrage in 1894. In 1894, the Kansas Women's Suffrage Amendment was on the ballot. This amendment would have provided women with the right to vote in all elections in the state. Colorado had passed full suffrage for women in 1893, leading many Kansans to believe this was their chance to pass similar legislation. The amendment was ultimately rejected, a dramatic and crushing defeat for suffragists. Following this defeat, reformers would not propose another amendment for nearly 20 years. In 1910, the president of the Kansas Equal Suffrage Association, Lucy Johnston, decided it was time to make another appeal to the legislature. Suffragists had gained allies at all levels of government, including Governor Stubbs, whose wife was a suffragist. In 1911, a resolution was introduced to the House proposing an equal suffrage amendment to the state's constitution. Members of the Kansas Equal Suffrage Association contacted every legislator to ask them to vote in favor of the resolution. The resolution passed both houses with a large majority and was signed by Governor Stubbs. The issue of women's suffrage would be on the ballot for the 1912 general election. Having learned from their prior failures, the Kansas Equal Suffrage Association took a new approach to raising support. It is important to note that in the past, white suffragists focused only on white, middle-class women and excluded women who did not fall into these categories from being full and active participants. In the lead-up to the 1912 election, the KESA's membership committee contacted all the women in Kansas and encouraged them to join their cause. In addition to the membership committee's efforts, the press committee wrote suffrage articles for Kansas newspapers. F.E. Graham, chairman of the Education Committee, proposed a three-part plan: the distribution of literature, endorsement of suffrage by educational bodies, and essay contests in public schools. Graham believed that these essays were a way to reach parents as they would be interested in their children's work. Suffragists would need at least $30,000 to conduct this campaign. In 2024, this amount would equal just under $1 million. Funding for this endeavor came from a variety of sources. Each board member gave money and solicited donations from others. Donations came from outside Kansas as well. The National Suffrage Association and groups in Nebraska, Florida, Arkansas, California, Missouri, Kentucky, and Pennsylvania sent money to help finance the campaign. Local groups held fundraisers, festivals, bazaars, and teas to raise money. One woman, Pansy Clark, had the idea to sell balloons. The balloons were between 2 and 2.5 feet wide, bright orange, and had slogans like "Votes for Women" or "Votes for Mother." They were sold on the street or at fundraisers. To spread their message, suffragists planned picnics, parades, concerts, and rallies. Also, by this time, automobiles were more common and helped them reach people across the state. Suffragists passed out thousands of leaflets and other materials. Whenever a politician gave a speech, they would contact him to speak in support of the Vote for Women. Male support was very important for the campaign, and a men's league for women's suffrage was organized. The general election was held on November 5, 1912. It was an extremely close election, but the amendment passed with 52% of the vote. Kansas was the 8th state to grant women full voting rights. This was 8 years before the passing of the 19th Amendment in 1920, which prohibited the federal government and states from denying citizens the right to vote based on sex. Thank you for watching. Our next video will discuss populism, the most successful third-party political movement in U.S. history, which is often associated with Kansas farmers.